recording save started. And yeah, so I'm going to go into rendering a little bit quicker than I usually do for these CoolZone steps. Just do the grid and then go to, what is it, the bend? The typical patented copywritten studio backdrop bend. Thoughts on Axiom one day with the small demo? Yeah, I looked into it. I installed it, or I did the DSO or all that stuff yesterday. It seems pretty nice. I don't know how much of a gain you would get, depending on like just comparing OpenCL Pyro with the particle setup and stuff that I have. Like, I wasn't noticing it to be the way that I'm doing Pyro right now. That area of the sim wasn't a bottleneck, but possibly I'll do a demo or a trial with the Axiom stuff. Patent pending. The patent has been submitted to the office. All right. Subdivide. We just have the backdrop. I think another trying to think. There's other ways I've done it too that can work out all right. Like if you need a cyclorama, if you just do tube height to 0, one of these radii to 0, then you have like a subdivided circle somewhat. I think if you just switch this around, it will be reversed or flipped up. And then if you do group, just make an edge group with the unshared edges, and just extrude this up. Ruby Yachts, how's it going? And you poly extrude that border group. Maybe just do this way with like however many divisions you want. Subdivide things this way. Maybe you need to fuse that centroid point. You would control these divisions. So depending on what you need, sometimes this 360-degree type thing can be nice. You could always clip one axis. You kind of have like a soundstage type thing. So this is another alternative way to do this kind of thing. It's pretty cool. Can you explain nodes? Please explain nodes. Are you capping? Are you memeing? So maybe we want to clip the other direction here. I'll explain each one point by point. All right, we're starting with the first capital alphabetical order. Get your notes out, get ready. Well, I mean, so if you're really new to nodes, the concept is it's just like if you're used to Photoshop or a more destructive based thing, if you're doing like drop down operation, like in Maya, you do like drop down extrude, like with the menu up here. So nodes is just a visual representation of an operation, like a little program or a little function that's running. So it's just the visual history of that. So each operation or each thing that you're doing to a mesh or to geometry gets represented by a node. So it's just meant to be a more easier, more approachable way of like programming or procedural things. So if you're a sculptor, like your name suggests, each like sculpt operation could be a thing. So there is the concept of like deleting history kind of like Maya does. So Maya does keep track of the nodes, and like with Houdini, you could do like stash and do this. And then you've just locked off that input into this little like safe or the stash box. With Houdini, I mean, generally they try to keep it so it's not, this is like a destructive operation because the link between the start and this node is destroyed. Yeah, the stash node is kind of handy. Another thing, the stash node is somewhat newer. Like before you would control click on this lock, and then this red indicator here would mean that the memory, the geometry is cached or stored in this node. Yeah, so this saves it embeds it into the Houdini file. So your file gets larger, but your view over here is less cluttered. But the link and the history is destroyed. So Houdini, they try to make it easier to work with this history. Like if I wanted to adjust the height, I can still adjust. This is like parametric or parameterized method of this. And then if I really wanted to, like, maybe instead of clip, it's better to do, I don't know about that. You could think of better ways to like slice this, maybe. Long Walk Dathan, how's it going? Python, I wouldn't start with Python right away if you're still getting, like, I'd take some time to get used to the nodes and that approach first. But Python is quite handy with Houdini, but I would say maybe wait like a year or something of just, there's quite a bit you can do without Python, so it's not, unless you're learning it for a job or for a reason like that, as an artist, it doesn't immediately provide you with a ton of benefits. Like there's a lot of interesting stuff you can do with the nodes and just learning the core of Houdini before you move on to that kind of advanced stuff. Let me see if I can do something with this carve. So I'm learning to be a technical artist. Like Python is helpful, but it's the way that I kind of interface with it or think about it is like just it is a go between Houdini and the rest of your computer, like for working with files on your disk or making archives like save files or flipbooks. I use it for that kind of stuff. But in terms of actually creating visually interesting stuff inside of Houdini, there's Vex and there's the nodes that you can rely on much more heavily than Python. Like with Maya, people learn Python to do visually interesting stuff because there's like, it's your only option with Mel and stuff, but Houdini Vex is, I would say it makes more sense to learn that if you're going to learn programming than Python does. I don't know if this, I don't think this works the way I thought it was. I was just looking for a way to like slice this tube. So I think I could do it maybe just with a circle. So if I was to make like a soundstage tool kind of thing, just put that on the ground, the ZX plane, and then if I go to open arc, then this degrees here would be like the radius of my soundstage or the backdrop. And then if I did a poly extrude. Don't confuse me. Are you paid for Udemy courses? I mean, I would just say if you're very new, like to nodes, I would just focus on nodes before worrying about Python or anything like that. It looks blurry at 720. We could go up. I don't know if we want to go up right now in the middle of the stream, if it will mess things up. Right? I don't know. I'm going to stick with 720 for today and see how it goes. I was just trying to make it, like, basically because I'm not a high enough level on Twitch, I I can't give people the option of going between different resolutions. Is it too blurry? You guys want to? I'll just do a quick reboot. It's fine. All right, so I'll see it through today, and then next stream I'll be back at 1080p if my review deems it too scuffed to use. So yeah, like right now I'm making just a backdrop. So every Friday I do the CoolZone render. So I was just kind of breaking this down with nodes of like why you would want to use them, and instead of like other software like ZBrush or Maya, where you don't really get exposed to that. So this one I'm just gonna scale the size down to 0. And then with the divisions, I could set that. And the groups here that you could output, like front, side, front boundary seam. So we would want to keep like one of these, the border group. Visualize these groups. Whoops. Edges. So I think this back boundary group, if I just replace it here. Oops. Does it show up? Extrude back. Uh-oh. All right. There it is. I think this... I don't know how that got doubled up now. Turn one of these off. Maybe I just need a fuse somewhere in here. It sucks. The resolution is sucking. So it's just a balance of like more accessible for everyone, or sucking a little bit more for everyone. I don't know how these faces got doubled up. Let me try this polypath. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just gonna give up on that for right now. But basically, 1440. I don't know if I can do I guess at OBS I could go up to it. You want to try to? I don't know if I want to. I'm just gonna keep going like this for today. There's not gonna be a lot of scripting or reading. It's gonna be more visual anyways for the viewport, so it should be okay. All right. So with the nodes, the main reason to use these is like you could package this stuff up with that, and then you just have reusable tools. So you do parameter interface, like aside from Python or stuff like that, you already have a little bit of a way to make tools or reusable scripts or assets. Not scripts in the sense that it's based off of code, but scripts because it's just like a programmatic tool. So if you just uncheck this forbid linking parameters from outside, and then go in here, maybe the divisions I think are going to be useful. Maybe the subdivision smoothing iterations. So then if I go back up, I have some controls here that are somewhat like bare level modeling controls. So that's just the theory behind nodes with Houdini, is you're just, as long as you have some intention of like you're not just creating them sloppily everywhere and staying. If you stay organized, you create like reusable little micro assets or micro tools. So that's the big advantage of Houdini with SOPs and stuff like that. So we'll just get into it now. So the purpose of this was making like a soundstage. Like if you're a photographer, sometimes they have these are called like the cyclorama. It's like a 360 degree or 180 cyclical structure. Or then this is like a standard one as well. That's like the folded. They have the paper roll that the printer machine or whatever spits out this little cloth backdrop. But I'm just gonna get started with this one and make a camera. If you really are OCD like me, compulsive organizational, this is one thing that Houdini just forces people into, is working and always thinking like staying organized or precise or whatever. So just zeroing out this camera to be exactly at the middle, and then start building this out with the redshift render view. So we just have the cyclorama, no lights or anything like that, so everything's just pretty boring. Do material, RS material. This one I'm just gonna do like somewhat papery looking thing. I think that's just start with a plastic and then get close to it, so that you can't drag and drop onto that. Just do it over here. You can build the basic studio. You mean like the lights, the RS lights are the background? I might just do like overhead light, RS light. Save it as HDA. Yeah, if you wanted to build out a full like 3-point light setup, some people do that. You'd even have your lights ready to go, and then it just makes future work quicker, like turntables or stuff like that. You're always sure that you're using like the same starting point and stuff, which can be nice. All right. I think I want one more layer of the subdivision. Maybe a few more. Sometimes doing the normal, I don't know, being like a little bit of faceting or stuff like that. That should be good. I might move my camera, move it up. Maybe just go with like a longer lens. All right. And let's just put like a subject in, just this sphere as like a starting point. So Redshift doesn't know about the primitive. You just have to actually give it like quads or tris or actual polygons. There it is. Perfection. The most precise form your eyes have ever seen. All right. Wrap it up. Nothing more to know. This is the only thing you ever want to create in your life. So yeah, we might make another material. I don't know, maybe like silver, maybe just a plastic, not too much of a diffuse, just like a reflective black orb. Look at that. Perfection. Yeah, so my main idea today is to play around with distortions and reflections and stuff like that. I'm going to do a grid. And then with this grid, if I put it on the XY plane, so it's like aligned with the camera, just put it in front, kind of like it's a pane of glass that the camera is looking through. So we do VOPs. It's a good way to do kind of like, typically this is, you use this for shaders with like other 3D packages. But with Houdini, you could kind of run shaders on the geometry themselves. That's pretty cool. So like taking the X component or the X position of the vertices or the mesh, put that through a sine wave and look at the color. If we multiply that or increase the frequency, start to see some stripes. If we, instead of visualizing that as a color, we could use it actually as like a displacement. But again, because this is a shader that's running over the geometry instead of like at render time, this displacement will actually move the points in 3D space. Murat Pak did some interesting stuff with glass. He's doing like the 360-degree turntables with the glass like reflecting terrains. I think this is pretty cool, right? Yeah, I really like that. It was a really, really nice idea. It's terrific. Thank you for the 2-month streak, tier 2. I appreciate it. Sent you a whisper. How's it going, CG Rockstar? So I might just decrease the frequency of this a little bit and the amplitude as well. Douche fuck. I've been really enjoying the videos on your YouTube lately. Finally able to catch the stream. Thanks for coming in and checking it out live. I'm doing just some basic kind of render effects. So I'm going to be doing some stuff with glass today. I have that orb that I'm making like a glass pane right now. And look at this extrude. It's like a little wavy bit of glass. And just add normals to it. Should be good. So we have our backdrop. Oof. Backdrop. Glass. And just make one more material. The glass reset. All right, let's see what we get. There it is. This is like kind of like the privacy glass or whatever. You play around with the IOR to get some interesting different patterns or I don't know, interferences or whatever. This is pretty cool. And then we can go on to the redshift, do this top level updates. and the GI bounces. Reminds you of Arrival with the aliens that look through that. 'Cause it's like, I guess there's kind of a bit of blur to that glass, the barrier or whatever. Like as they move away from it, they become more blurry or obscured or whatever. So yeah, I think if you just increase this frequency a ton, you'll get more of that, like really such a masterpiece. Who's the director for that? But yeah, if you do a lot of high frequency sine waves at a lower amplitude, you could also play around with this extrude. Dennis, yeah. I saw the Dune trailer. He's pretty excited for that one. So yeah, if you do like a bunch of high frequency sine waves, maybe I need a thin, this is like the thickness of the glass with this extrude. If you do a ton of it, then you just kind of get like a blurry, it's like the microfacet blurriness or whatever. You could as well on the glass material just do roughness. You have like, this is simulating like a bunch of little sine waves or whatever, like very high frequency blurriness. So I think that's in Arrival, they kind of have that effect or whatever going on, like as the creatures step back from the glass or that barrier or whatever, they become, it's kind of like a depth of field, just blurry effect or whatever. All right. So yeah, there's sine, and then there's other functions. You do like the Voronoi noise. Let's see what happens with it. Might need to multiply the frequency of this one up. Let's just try rebooting it. So you'd see it a little bit. See it a bit more now. Maybe go the other way with it. I'd expect these things to act more like little lenses or something, you know? Maybe it's just the thickness. Oof. Sometimes. This is what we're doing tonight, or whatever time it is for you. Yeah, this is it. This is the CoolZone. So this, I don't know why these bits here are getting maybe on this cusp angle here. End goal is always as awesome as you can make it in as little amount of time. Yeah, I don't know why this, if it's just not high enough resolution. It's an infinite game. It's a never-ending game. There's no reference I have right now. Yeah, I don't know, it's a bit weird how that... Crank the dispersion to some insane number. For the, oh yeah, everyone loves the glass redshift dispersion. September. It's going all right. How about you? End of the week, at least. A good sign. Yeah, I don't know if, let me play around with this. You can also get rid of this jitter with the Voronoi. And then you'll just get like a grid instead of this organic pattern or whatever. Let me turn this settings down a little bit. I think it's like lagging. The hell? Alright, I'm gonna turn the grid. Oh no. Oh no. Alright. I'm gonna save. Put this in a new folder. Render time displacements instead? Yeah, you can. You can do it at render time, you'll get better results. Just seems weird, like the those patterns is not what I was expecting. What is this? All right. Call this distort. I think I just need to reopen Houdini. For whatever reason, my stuff is going. The parameters were like lagging out. It's going a little bit better, Alex. It's good to see you. Yeah, it's a little bit clearer outside. At least we can see the sun now. It's still fairly smoky with the air quality and stuff like that, but it's better than the complete darkness we were in the middle of the week. It's time for a new one. All right, so I think with my glass pane here, just bring the resolution down. Yeah, it's at least things seem to be getting better, which is nice. Maybe going this other way with the other direction with this stuff. Maybe just a lower frequency. See what that looks like. Yeah, hopefully the wildfires cool off. Alright. So I'm not feeling this Voronoi stuff. Let me try maybe like a 3D sine wave. Maybe look at the length. Oof. Put it into the wrong one. Wanted to put it into color. All right. So if you do the sine wave over each component, you get like these circles or whatever. Length is just the distance. So like without it, you get like this grid kind of thing. So length does a few things. It kind of like you have two options. You could do absolute value that makes things stay above zero. The length is just the distance like of each of the sign, I guess. Does that kind of it's a little bit hard to explain, I guess, in terms of like a sine wave, because the sine wave is operating over all the different components X, Y, and Z. So you get like a grid of little circles kind of doing it that way. I think this absolute, maybe you want to do a maximum, and then you could get a grid of lines or whatever like that. So it's just two different ways of doing repetitive kind of grid type stuff. You could also do trying to think. Maybe just maximum. I don't think that's what I want to do. Might just stay with this one. Maybe just work with them individually. You could like layer them up yourself. They get different kind of grids like that. So like the length here, when you see these parts that go below 1, that's kind of what the length is doing, is it's kind of acting like a absolute value, but the absolute value gives you more of the rigid, like grid-based results. But yeah, just cool abstract patterns or whatever. You'd make Nike sneakers, the the bottom of shoes, or chain link fences, or metal or stuff like that. You heard it. All right. Try this. Maybe less. Really good with noise patterns with terrain building too. Yeah, I think it's just enough practice of doing that kind of stuff. Like writing shaders and all that stuff, doing procedural noises and patterns. With effects, it comes in handy quite a bit as well, because you're usually doing like a bit of noises for emissions of particles and stuff like that. Is the glass thick enough? Yeah, I'm not sure right now. That's a bit more of what I was expecting to see. Might just be that my displacement was like too high, and it's definitely I think I'm getting closer to it now though with this kind of stuff. But yeah, you can my IOR is like the default settings. You can push it to accentuate some of that stuff. Eventually you get into pretty like crazy territory and stuff like that. But maybe like, I don't know, this is like closer to a gem or a diamond or something like that. Good resources for stuff like that. I think this Book of Shaders one is pretty good in terms of like an online resource. This is all about like algorithmic patterns and stuff like that. There might be like a pay method to get more of these articles, or maybe he didn't finish them all, but he does a really good job of just breaking down like the signal processing stuff, like working with noises that way to do different results. Seagull Rush. You could watch it. This is a better stream quality for you. So just like shaping functions, doing all this stuff is really good. There's a RenderMan book as well. I forget the name of it. It has like a picture of a planet on the front of it. Duck Fast, thank you for the tier 1. I believe it's this one. Texturing and modeling a procedural approach. This is a really good one if you're looking for more of this like noise synthesizing functions or whatever. All of the stuff that people are producing with it is, I don't know, not necessarily like very pretty just because it might be from a long time ago or whatever, but it's basically just like all of these math functions are like the fundamentals of writing shaders or writing like, I don't know, instead of working with textures, if you're generating or synthesizing patterns, this kind of stuff is super useful. So yeah, this is the name of that book. It's super useful, I mean, even for working with textures, because it's like applying some of this math functions to it, like shaping functions is like kind of like a color correction, but you could do even more interesting stuff or whatever with it. I don't know why I can't, usually you can like open the book and see some pages of it or whatever. But yeah, those are a couple good ones. The Book of Shaders one is a super good resource just for online things. All right. So the other thing I could try, maybe just doing this transform. I've never used Touch Designer. Maybe like a handful of times I've opened it up to mess around with it. But I think that they're not supporting Linux still. I think they've switched. So I think it's just Windows and Mac. They added Mac support like somewhat recently. But it definitely seems a pretty good entryway into like real-time stuff. It's like has a lot of the same SOPs and like operations and stuff like that as Houdini does. A lot of people use it for like concerts, real-time kind of visuals and stuff like that. Right. So yeah, maybe this, instead of this distance right here is moving it along its normal, and then this transform set to global is just simply like moving it forwards or backwards. Let me see what happens now if I do this. So that could be cooler. Yeah, I don't know if it just needs to be like really thick. All right, I think I know another issue as well. So maybe you could just go in lower resolution. Could do a bit of the attribute blur to smooth out those values or whatever. Do this poly extrude and then do subdivision afterwards. Try to get rid of some of those like diamond artifacts. Oof. Extrude volume. You think that will be I've never had a lot of luck with that one. I don't know, maybe I'm not using it properly. I think you can, I think like using this with to change the base normal to the other direction. So is this doing the pretty similar thing to oh, it just makes it flat. Yeah, I think this is doing a pretty similar thing to just using this in this mode of the pure directional extrusion, right? It's just moving it over. If you want this to flatten the base, you can, I think, set that to 0. And then if you switch the transform fucking phone. If you switch this transform order around so that the translate happens before the scale, then you can get like a similar, maybe you still want to do it that way. I just need to update it. So yeah, I usually just stick with the poly extrude. I don't know what's happening inside of here, but let's see what happens with the flattened base. It's pretty cool. There's more like lenses or whatever. This might be too close to the sphere. Oof. It's like you have a glass, like, cup or whatever that you're looking through. Kind of like that. Right? It's kind of like that kind of idea. A beveled glass or something. All right. Now this is more interesting. This is almost like the slit scanning stuff. It's kind of like what is the name of that? Rolling shutter. Kind of like a similar idea or whatever, but basically like a horizontally time is displaced or whatever. you get this really weird like warping. This is through time, over time, so you get some really interesting. I don't think there's an easy way to set this up inside of Houdini. Some stuff you could do with like a lens shader maybe, but like sampling the scene at different time periods is not set up that it's not that easy to do with Redshift or Mantra. To like displace time over the duration of the image or whatever. You get really interesting results, at least. It's a similar idea or whatever. Maybe we'll go to the 3D scans. They have some new ones, right? This is the first time they have this gentleman drinking the wine out of the conch shell, or this is like the the ancient the ancient version of the beer funnel or the beer bong or whatever. All right, maybe just the classic Napoleon. Is this the French conqueror Napoleon? Different Napoleon. Bacchus? What is Bacchus? Oh, the Greek god of wine. Is that what the statue was? Alright. I'm just looking for... Yeah, so Arnold, you can actually do some rolling shutter stuff that works pretty well. But with Redshift and Mantra, they don't support it. Basically, like Redshift and Mantra, it doesn't... You can do some motion blur stuff, but like to change the time that you're like rendering the image horizontally or vertically, you can't adjust that that render time or whatever. Maybe this one, Aphrodite. But I would be interested in trying out the rolling shutter with Arnold. There was some pretty cool stuff League Rigs did with it. All right, let's grab this one. So I'm just going to replace the sphere with this model, so to get a little bit more interesting patterns, hopefully. Let's just rename this maybe to subject. My guess is it's way too big. You just do this match size. It's a good way of getting your model at the origin and then scale to fit uniform scale. Looks like they're upside down. Maybe you could do it right here. It's just like -1. Doesn't look like it worked. So if the normals are reversed like this and it's flipped, I think if you just do -1. You just do a 180 and lift it up. This model is pretty thick. It's a pretty dense mesh, or if we look at the topology of it, there's different ways to do it. Like remesh usually gives you pretty nice results. Sometimes poly reduce is quicker though. Like in terms of just performing the operation, it will book and give you results more quickly. So I might just try this for right now. So we cut down 10% or 15% of the original resolution. So just with like Redshift, it's a GPU renderer, so to send the model to the GPU takes a lot less time if you do a poly reduce or whatever with it. Pretty cool. I'm just moving the light, trying to get a better response or whatever, like better shadows. I think the standard, we just turn off the glass for a second. So like the standard portrait lighting style, I think if the light gets closer, usually they try to get like a bit of a triangle shape or whatever on the other cheek. It's just like the standard, I don't know, Renaissance like painting or whatever. They have that going on. Even modern photographers will do it, but it seems like it was something that was kind of figured out by the Renaissance painters. Is like they usually have that cheek or a shape like that in lighting, at least like the Rembrandt ones, because he played a lot with the darkness. But yeah, to make a face or the features or whatever like recognizable or looking nice, that technique or whatever is pretty nice to use. Maybe go back into the darkness. This black, I think, is pretty interesting, like the more reflective stuff, because it makes things feel more like a fluid. I don't know, more like then when you distort it, it just becomes more abstract or whatever. Maybe going with like a bigger light shape. So it makes stuff harder to light though, if you just are dealing with like pure reflection. Could be interesting. Let's put the distortion thing back. So yeah, it's a bit more interesting having it behave more graphically or whatever. So just a lot more contrast. Let's get less of the blurring. Oof. I'm just trying out some different frequencies and stuff with the sine waves that I was putting through. This is like, what is that? Chuck Close or whatever, right? Is that his name? Charles? Pretty cool. Super cool. That's why they call it the CoolZone. All right. So I don't know, with this glass, you could turn off reflecting the light. I think that's what you're seeing right here is like the reflection of the light source in this glass. So maybe just enabling the light for the backdrop and the subject. I don't know. It depends what you're after, but it just makes things a little bit cleaner, I think, like without seeing that extra highlight or whatever. I might leave it like that for right now. Is Odd Force not popular anymore? I mean, I just think it's just more of like how the internet is working these days. Like the older bulletin board based forums aren't as popular in general, even for other 3D software, like other communities that were online with forum based interaction. It's just seems like these days it's more like Twitter or Discord or Twitch is just where the new techniques, the new stuff is being shared. I don't know if it's just the Zoomers and their short attention spans or what it is, but it seems like a bit of the veterans like left Odd Force as well, like ETU and some people like that don't frequent Odd Force as much. I don't know if they just got busy or stuff like that. Some of the people I still see on Discord, like ETU, he's in some Discords. But yeah, it just seems like Odd Force, people sometimes still use it, but in terms of getting questions answered or stuff like that, the Discords usually are, I would say, I would recommend it more for you if you were trying to get things. Some of the Odd Force posts are still super nice, like having the more like long form format, but yeah, I would just say it's just the way that the internet is moving in terms of, I don't know. In general, it just seems like the viewership of Odd Force isn't as high as it used to be, so that might be a reason people aren't using it as much. Yeah, it's a really good source, and I mean, it's still nice to be able to structure a nice post that's like informative with images and stuff like that. Like with Discord, it has its own problems. Things get lost in the shuffle. Finding like really good information can be a bit hard. But I don't know. It's just the way internet changes. It's not always good. Supposed to be the way progress works is like the pendulum swings back and like the good from each side or whatever is kept, and gradually like you end up with the best, but it just takes time. Got a drink and suddenly we're here. We drank too much. So I'm just, yeah, I've just still been pushing this glass stuff around. I sorted out some of the issues that I was having with the method that I was extruding it. So I think subdividing it after the extrusion helped smooth out some of the reflections. Looks like with dispersion. Yeah, I might add it in a little bit. I'm still trying to like simplify some of these forms, like the reflection a little bit. But yeah, and then I think doing the extrusion instead of this method, this extrudes along the normal or average normal or whatever. I guess this is still somewhat cool. But yeah, instead of doing that, just doing transform, this is just pure object space or world space direction of thickness or whatever. I don't know about this. I was like flattening the one side of it as well with scaling it down to 0. I might just do this for right now. Oh, forgot my view was still attached to the light. All right, I think that's close enough to where I was. It's always a problem forgetting that your viewport is tied to the light. So yeah, before my view like crapped out on me, I was turning the jitter down, so then you'll get like a grid based, somewhat similar to doing the sine wave stuff. And you add the jitter back and you get like randomized cell offsets or whatever. All right, let's go down a little bit. See what it looks like with the distortion. Dispersion, I'm sorry. This is the Twitter dispersion you were talking about. But yeah, it seems like everyone is super obsessed with it right now. You have like a oily, interesting look. Oh. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool with the white background, how it's, and then this subject being black or whatever, it definitely makes it feel pretty oily, like iridescent somewhat. Thank you, Nightwing. It is very I'll get rid of it. It is quite a you nailed it with the color scheme there. There's a lot of green, a bit of purple. Looks like a cool album cover. There was what was it? You guys ever listen to Mum Dance? I feel like one of his albums had that kind of yeah. This one? Pretty cool. I don't know if they did this in real life or if it was just they just do it in Photoshop or something. All right. Let's go back to the glass. Maybe this. Whoa, whoa, whoa. This is pretty cool. A bit more simplified. Let me try a little bit less extrusion. It's a weird balance of doing this like amount that you're bending things and then doing the extrusion and stuff in different places. This is kind of like glass bricks or something like that. So maybe this length, pretty wavy. Horrifying. Like the person from The Ring or something like that. I might try doing the anti-alias noise and 3D noise, and then doing this, adding it to the position, doing like the distortion. Duck fast, thank you. Yes, we're getting somewhere. So yeah, this just a low frequency or whatever, you get more organic. You can make so many interesting variations. It's not even funny. Yeah, the animation would be pretty cool. Endless possibilities. This stuff up here is pretty nice. The warping or whatever of it. Pixel sorting through, looking through this way. Yeah, I was talking earlier about how it looks a little bit like the slit scan stuff. This is kind of like a close to the pixel sorting, but not exactly. Some of the pixel sorting stuff the really like spiky stuff you could do actually with displacement, like with this really fine grid-based displacement. You can get this kind of smearing effect. You might be able to do it's definitely could pull like some parts, get it looking somewhat similar. All right. Maybe I'll do another. Oof. This is a pixel sorting kind of thing. Look at that. Final. We did it. Very luxurious. So I usually use these multiply nodes here to uniformly, it's the same idea as increasing these frequencies, but it's just easy. It's like a shortcut or whatever if you just multiply the position by a single number instead of increasing all of those. I don't know if I've seen his work with the procedural. I've seen a lot of interesting procedural pottery stuff popping up recently. How do you spell it? Instagram? I don't know about that. Yeah, I think I saw the transforming ones. This stuff was super nice. It's like really cool seeing the shaders, like all aspects of it, even really nicely done. Like even his studio lighting setup that's moving around, like the time lapse or whatever effect still like applies to everything. Is everything of this is like really well executed. But yeah, I've thought about like doing procedural pottery is like a really good, could be a really good like intro to Houdini tutorial series or course or whatever. Is like super simple operations in terms of SOPs and stuff like that. But if you can teach people just how to light and shade stuff really well with it, you create really cool stuff. Maybe go a bit higher with the sine waves. I'm gonna try moving the light around. I don't know. Seems like this Aphrodite is always just stuck. A link to it? Yeah. This is the specific post, but you could find his account through it. Yeah, so I might make a copy of this backdrop, and then I'm gonna turn on the other method of bending and rotate this one around. Flip it around, move it. So my idea is like some of this should catch the light, and maybe I just want to use like a bounce card or whatever. I'm just trying to get some more white like on her face. This looks special. All right. So maybe just go with this as a grid on the axis. Yeah, I don't know if I need more lights. Go back back into the light. You would expect the grid to show up a bit more in the reflections. Maybe just start doing a couple lights. Yeah, I don't know with this pattern. This is a bit more like that mum dance. I go by Zach. This is looking nice. Got some nice dispersion going on. Yeah, player two is all about the dispersion. So it's working pretty well. I could try playing around with like the IOR stuff. Again. So I think this dispersion works kind of, it's like inverted. Like really low numbers will give you wild dispersion. If you like push it too much, you can see it's kind of breaking a bit. I think for like water, maybe like 50 is their default setting. It's all kind of a hack. Like it's none of it is really physically accurate or whatever. But it's a super nice technique to add in, just to add a bit of like color to things. I think it's pretty accurate. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a little bit more accurate than like prior methods, but basically because it's not like a spectral renderer, like you would want the glass to work like a prism and actually split the different wavelengths of light, but it's not doing exactly that. It gets pretty close to giving you usable results, but like in terms of being like architecturally or like physically correct, it's still pretty far off, I think. Does that make sense? Like if you look up references and things of actual dispersion, like diamonds and glass and stuff, it's not 100% or close to it, but that's the general theory of like redshift, is gives you good looking results really quickly that are kind of shortcuts or hacks. So I think like I'm doing the subdivision after these operations, maybe going up a bit higher. Just give you some more detail to work with. This subdivision is kind of acting like a smooth operations. I was like doing a bit of a low pass filter or whatever, like reducing the quality of everything. So yeah, that's like when I started to see this stuff, just like it's like too high frequency or too high of an amplitude. That's when I was starting to add that subdivision. Seemed to get rid of those artifacts or whatever. I think it's just from doing too sharp or too high of a frequency of displacements, like noises or whatever. Sometimes the poly extrude does that. These like spikes or whatever. Whoops. I think sometimes if you update the extrude mode to point normal, either pre-compute or if you do start with a normal, like if you do points by face area, then you do existing or attribute, that can as well just help it. For whatever reason, this primitive edge normal can give you those spikes or whatever sometimes. This stuff is really cool. Maybe do the blur again. Should get rid of this. These are kind of giving you like the pixel sorting effects or whatever. So I'm trying to get it a little bit more readable. You could like locally mask out the amplitude in certain areas, but like if you just apply another noise as a mask, so certain areas remain smooth. Let me try playing around with this. Oh, IOR stuff as well. I don't know with the statue. This poly reduce might be making the features like too smooth in some areas. Looks like you lose a little bit of sharpness. I just increase the percentage. I don't know how much that will help, but it's always good not to like do too many smoothing operations or blurring or whatever. Moving the lights around again. Let's try soloing the other, like just muting this one. Just start with one again and see what we can get out of it. I don't know about this bust material. I think it's pretty cool with having a larger areas of black. Could do like these metals, precious metals. Yeah, I don't know. I think this method here was pretty good. How long have I been using Houdini? I've been using it maybe 8 years or 9 years or something. On my Vimeo videos, that you could find some super old ones of it, and like see a bit of the progress and stuff like that. I didn't really start using it extensively until I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I've lost track of all aspects of time. So let me see this one right here from, and this Vimeo website is just a mess. Yeah, Vimeo in general. So 7 years ago was when I finished the side effects internship at Houdini, and then ever since then I've been only using Houdini pretty extensively. It was much more like technical back then. I've been trying to branch out and be more of a generalist or whatever in the last 3 years or something like that. But yeah, I think you could find some, I don't know, Vimeo's just a horror of a user experience now. But yeah, you could, if you look at the videos there, you could see some super basic ones from when I was like first starting to use Houdini. Just like basic extrude videos or whatever. All right, I'm gonna try going back to the glass pattern. Maybe just save it in case I mess up, make things look worse. I don't know what's causing these grid. Maybe it's just redshift. Like I'm zoomed in past the pixel level or something. Sometimes doing normals on the points, you can get a little smoother results. For startups, I'm not sure what you mean by this for the startups. You mean just like the scenes? The starting scenes? I think just in general, Houdini's less discouraging now than it used to be. Like there's a lot more resources and stuff like that. I don't know if that's answering your question or helpful. In general, Houdini is a pretty discouraging, frustrating software to learn. Just because there is like a lot of stuff that can go wrong, or little like gotchas, I guess is a more polite way of putting it. Let's bring the other light back. Startup, you mean just like a beginner using Houdini? Yeah, so I mean, it's definitely pretty discouraging as a beginner, I would say, but just breaking it down into simpler steps, trying to produce, like just not aiming too high in terms of your expectations for learning makes it easier. If that helps. I'll just turn off this other backdrop. Trying to get rid of this. That stuff. Put the other light in. Some classic stuff. I don't know when those other things came back. The glass shattering? Yeah, I think I have that on Instagram somewhere, but some fun R&D. So I think it was just this IOR. Cranking it too high was starting to make all those. Yeah, I mean, it was custom in the sense that I created it all before they made the pre-built like material fracturing in Houdini. But it's all based off of like Bullet, like using connect adjacent pieces on like the pretty typical those kinds of nodes, if that makes sense. Yeah, it's not an RBD material setup. It was before, I think it was like Houdini 17.5 or Houdini 17 or something. Yeah, the RBD material. Ah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like the dispersion is, I feel like it's a balance. Like you don't want to really go overboard with it, but it's just sneaking it in a little bit to especially to break up like the black and white. I feel like it's super cool for that. I think that's every bit of like design, like 3D. This is going to be super cheesy, and then you put it in and you're like, oh no, it actually looks good. Jib Wood, thank you for the tier 1. I appreciate it. Yeah, like lens flares and all that stuff. Like just a hint of it makes things feel a little bit more real. But once you like overuse it, it just ruins everything. Yeah, so I don't know, I might do another noise. With this one, just have it a one-dimensional noise. So like looking at the color, get out of the light. So the color here, this is gonna act as like a modulator, or like it will, I'm gonna multiply it against the amplitude here, the amount, so that there's just a low frequency noise affecting the amount of displacement. You ever concept your work, or just making it up as you go? Usually I'm making it up as I go. I've been trying to do a little bit more like sketching and pre-planning with some stuff. But usually like I'm either pulling references from Instagram or other places that I'm trying to like match that look or pull ideas from it. Sometimes it's just based off of like photographic techniques or whatever. Like today I was talking earlier about like the slit scan photography. The original starting point here was more of like the privacy glass. So I guess it's either like, for me right now, is starting with like a picture or an idea. Like this was my main jumping off point or whatever today. But yeah, usually it's just kind of like keying in on like a photograph technique or style or something like that. Like Could even just be motion blur, distortion, just like a one word dictionary definition or whatever. Like the Hulai prompts were kind of good in that sense. I don't know if you were around when they did this, but basically every day they had these one word prompts. Like, so Friday I'm just usually doing simple ideas, one day creations or whatever, and like having just a word to start with in terms of a idea or like a concept can be useful. But yeah, definitely like actually sketching out and concepting in that sense can really be nice as well in terms of like figuring out lighting and all that stuff that can take longer in 3D. I need to do a better job in that sense. Usually I'm kind of lazier and I'm just jumping right into Houdini, which if you're just starting with Houdini is a lot harder to do like without a clear idea in your head. I would say if you're just starting out, like sketching or planning things on paper can help a lot, like solidify your goals or whatever. Everything right now is a noise. None of it is sculpted. It's just these VOP network with sine waves. And then I'm adding noises like before the sine wave is computed, and then another noise affecting like the amplitude or whatever. Privacy Glass reminds you of Splinter Cell. Is it the original Splinter Cell, or one of the newer? I haven't played the super recent ones. Love the sine. So yeah, I'm doing this sine wave and then taking like the length of it after the fact or whatever. But yeah, I'm usually a fan of working this way and kind of like figuring some stuff out in 3D at least. Because you just have, with Redshift and everything, you just have such quick feedback in terms of like increasing frequencies, noises, and you could figure out a lot of the form and stuff kind of further along in the process. Redshift output usually your final image? Yeah, I'm usually doing this post effects, but that's usually my stopping point. Sometimes I'll do a bit of color correction, but I rarely ever do like paint over or fixes like in terms of masks or stuff like that, or paint overs of other stuff. Yeah, I mean, I do use comping sometimes if I'm working on projects with other people. Combining other CG elements or photographic like backplates or stuff like that, but for my personal stuff I prefer to get as close to the final result in 3D as I can. There's other people like more painter artist ways, they will push things a lot more in Photoshop. If you're working quickly, you could do a lot of like painting textures and stuff like that in 3D or in 2D in Photoshop, and you could work really quickly that way. But yeah, keep starting to feel this a little bit. Might just try some different offsets of this final noise. Might be a bit too much. These areas of dispersion are really cool. Feels like really natural. Make some fluid or something. I don't know. I'm gonna get back into the pyro at some point. Someone was bringing up Axiom earlier. That's like the GPU fluid simulation. Doing some pyro, that could be pretty cool. You're talking more of a fluid of like flip fluid? Flip too slow for a stream? Yeah, it depends with the flip stuff. I guess like some small scale effects you can do, like abstract kind of stuff going along curves and things like that. Is, yeah, the one I did for Hulai, you can work at that resolution pretty quickly, but once you start doing like bigger, like if you were to try to do a beach wave rolling in or something, it just takes super long to like get past just a still frame, because it's like you need to mesh, you need to simulate the entire thing, then you need to mesh the entire sequence or shot, like 30 frames. Sometimes the meshing takes like 5 minutes a frame, so it's like an entire day just caching or whatever. But yeah, right now after this I'm gonna focus on wrapping up the Lamborghini pyro smoke effects, and see what I'm moving on to after that. One idea I was thinking about was like stitching, like the thread kind of effects. This staying more procedural or whatever, but it's a cool mix of making things that look cool and then doing like more of the math, sine waves, and all those funky stuffs. Yeah, I don't know about this noise. I think it's just like a bit too high in some areas. All right, maybe try still increasing the resolution of the grid. Let's go up to 400. I have a problem with Houdini. We all, everyone has a problem with Houdini. When I start working, it would just randomly freeze. Sometimes it freezes if you pan. Total whiteout. I'm not sure. It might be if you're, yeah, some of the builds are cursed. If you're on OS X, sometimes there's a lot more like OpenGL viewport things that crop up with OS X, because they've switched over to Metal for their viewport draws or whatever with OS X. Yeah, some drivers, like NVIDIA drivers, are cursed. Might be the newest build, yeah, like this 499, or I think there's like 583 or something that's even newer than that I've had a bit of luck with. But yeah, like generally I try not to upgrade builds super quickly. 566 could be Could be good, like on their website, usually if you stick with production builds instead of the actual like everyday builds. Redshift, I don't think it supports. I'm not sure. The one guy, Duranjos, was like on vacation. He might have gotten back and updated it recently. I'm stuck with Redshift with the older one because I'm like with Linux, I haven't been able to get the newest NVIDIA drivers. You have to update like NVIDIA to 450 or something like that. But generally, I try not to update super often just because it's like, I don't know. You don't get a ton of gains for it. Unless there's like issues that you're struggling with, I would say it's better to stay with an older, more stable build. 460 just today. Plugin folder vanished. I don't know. So I was increasing the grid resolution, and then I'm playing around with this displacement distance, the extrude distance here. Starting to get some good variations of like high frequency and low frequency distortions. Your educational license runs out? For Redshift or for Houdini? The Houdini is pretty good. I think it's the indie license, like it's a pretty good bang for your buck or whatever. All right, let's try to just get this looking a little bit better. I think this noises are just a bit too rough, like too high frequency. Heat on the ground distorts the lighting moving through it. I don't know the technical name, but this kind of does have that look to it. It's like a gas. Sometimes, yeah, you see it with a gas, like exhaust, like when heat or stuff like that changes the properties of the air. Yeah, I'm not sure the technical, like I've always thought of it as like a mirage. I don't know what the technical, scientifical. You could be the first to name it scientifically. So yeah, I think these noises are still a bit too crazy. Try to smooth them out a little bit. Just, I think simplifying things is a bit better. I don't know, the lights. Just, they've gotten a bit too big maybe. Brought the beers out too early. There's yeah, I don't know, I've seen like technical videos of it. Sometimes they use it for fluids. You might find some luck for that, like they'll use it to visualize flow sometimes of like even a candle, if you look at it through the maybe polarized light or something like that, you can see a bit of distortion. I think this is the kind of stuff that they, I don't know. This is it. This Shilerin photography or whatever. Yeah, I don't know if there's a Mirage might be the most like general use name for it, but I think these depend a lot on the this is like using specific filters or whatever to see that range of the wavelength or whatever of the light or something. The inversion layer was super super fancy. It's like a Christopher Nolan terminology, like in Interstellar or something. They were doing interesting stuff with the light bending in that with the black hole and stuff. 18.0566 very crashy. Yeah, I think like sometimes they're like it's a combination of Redshift and Houdini plugin versions that can make it less stable, but that's why when I find something that's works pretty well, I'll try not to update super often, like 4 or 5 times a year, maybe. All right, maybe make a fake movie title that, yeah, it could be the name of a album or a song or something. A journey into the inversion layer. I've never had issues with Houdini freezing like after a specific time of use. The only thing is like maybe if you've put down a ton of nodes or stuff like that, it can get sometimes a bit buggy, but very rarely do I find that it's like because I've had Houdini open too long or not long enough or anything like that. I think, I don't know, the camera being further back was better. A bit better, I think. Yeah, I mean, it could be a GPU driver. Could be your viewport settings. Like if you press the D key, you could try turning this anti-alias samples down and some of the other more expensive lighting effects. Yeah, I haven't heard anything bad about the Houdini 566. Turn Aphrodite into angry Einstein. Yeah, I don't know. It's like certain areas of it I think are really nice, but trying to maybe just get some more features of it like more recognizable. Let's try with the other light, maybe. It's a bit better. Just save it, and then I'm gonna mess around with the pattern and check the IOR. Yeah, maybe just lowering the IOR a bit. Do 1 or 2 layers of the blur, like smooth out some of that really high frequency noise. There's other stuff too that they do, like stress analysis. That gives you these results. I don't know what this is called. I feel like I don't know, they use it like molded plastic or something. They're able to analyze like how much stress certain areas of the material is under using this or something. It's super weird. Yeah, I don't know that it might have changed recently, but I know in the past AMD used to have a little bit more issues with some Houdini. I think in the last like 3 or 4 years it's supposed to have gotten better. Alright, let me try maybe reducing the resolutions. Just trying to work more quickly to like evaluate some of these patterns and stuff. I don't know the model numbers well enough with AMD to know how recent that is. Is that a new, somewhat new card? Trying out Redshift concepts? Yeah, so this is just Redshift distortion, doing some glass. Like I have this pane of glass. So it's just camera, refraction, statue. Classic. I'm trying to refine the lighting a little bit more right now. Maybe this one could be a bit bigger. If it's super old, you might have better luck just like upgrading it. Especially now that they just had the pre-orders for the RTX ones. But I think like if it's not a specific Houdini build that everyone else is having problems with, the main culprit of like Houdini bugging out or being crashy is generally the GPU. Like that's the quickest thing that will cause issues for it. Yeah, I think like on B&H at least, some of the third-party RTX models are for pre-order. I think over the next few days they're going to add more models of like more vendors or whatever. Stopping by to make sure I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm still here. The fires have stayed out of San Francisco for right now. The air quality is still kind of subpar or whatever, but hopefully it will get better shortly. Seems like they still aren't that contained though, so I don't know. I think adding a bit of roughness to the statue material seems to help. Makes it, I don't know, I think it makes it look a little bit more refined. It's like less Steve, take it easy. Good luck in your research of Mirage-based inversion layers, Schlieren photographies. Yeah, I might just refine this glass stuff a little bit more, like the quality of it. I'd taken off the subdivision and blur to make it render faster, but I think I'm starting to be pretty happy with the look of everything. I don't know if this backdrop could be a bit dimmer. I think it's a little bit better without the backdrop blowing everything out like super white. No, I'm not working in ASUS. For the most part, I haven't been using it. Like, if I need super specific, I'm basically using this photographic exposure, kind of like a tone mapping type of thing. I was having issues with ASUS, like getting the output of this to match like a Vimeo or Instagram upload or stuff like that. So I ended up turning it off for right now, but I think if you're working in small teams, like small facility of 10 people or something like that, it can be pretty useful. So everyone's like in the same color space and like lossless transfer and stuff. The stream crashed. It's better than the Houdini crashing, right? But this thing right here is a bit disappointing. Artifact or whatever. I'm just gonna bring the background back up a little bit. I think my lights could get flipped around, like this one dimmer and the side brighter overall. Alright, just need to figure out this glass. Fix some of those like glitches. Just keep subdividing. Yeah, I don't know, I think try going back to the primitive. I don't think it's necessarily a glitch. I think it's just too strong of a peak in that one area that's actually like refracting. You could do I mean, talking about like these little grids right there, you can just do the tessellation, like render time subdivision. I haven't been doing it because it slows down the build time or whatever, but I think for the final image you might want to do it just to subdivide, as they say, subdivide the shit out of it. Yeah, I don't know, I might just try a different noise offset to get rid of those industry terms. Just increase the resolution. So just brute force it. Maybe this noise right here. I'm just gonna try a different offset. Lower frequency. This one's pretty cool. I might stick with this. Just turn, maybe add the blur. I feel like that it is kind of like holding up on itself too much in those areas. The blur can help fix that, I think, sometimes. Like it could make a crease if you are folding it up too much. Yeah, if you had a cloth or something like that behind here, it could be pretty cool. Or even doing a cloth sim instead of doing this with like sine waves. Like if the cloth is the refracting medium or participating. You know what I mean. The cloth is the glass. It could be cool as well. The protagonist. Here we have a cloth as our protagonist. Let's check out the IOR stuff again. I might try taking the camera, maybe moving it down, just so we don't have this. It's kind of a weird crop at the bottom. And then the glass, probably want to do similar idea. Hopefully that didn't mess up my stuff that I was liking about it. I don't know why this should be seen of some more shadows. On the ground at least, right? There's our problem. So take this backdrop. Super precise method. No, I think just having it scoot forward. It's not hovering. Let's get the other light back on. What's this? That's these? Just messing around with the glass distortion for a statue or whatever. Cool. I'm just gonna rip. Go for it. That's what I mean, we're all just ripping each other off. It's like I was talking about this Mum Dance cover art is kind of similar to that. Salvador Dali is doing a bit of, I don't know, some kind of stuff like this. A bit of like fluid dynamics. Chuck Close had a bit of this. It's all just ideas, is like an exchange. We're all taking inspiration from each other. This is Houdini. You do the specs that I'm using Redshift for the render engine, and then Houdini is this 3D modeling package or whatever I'm using to move stuff around in 3D and everything like that. So I adjusted this distance right here at the end and was starting to kind of dial it in. I think this is starting to feel better. It's like too much of this stuff at the edges was like throwing it off, like distracting, I think. But it's a bit better now. The statue is from 3D scans. So if you do resources, I have some links on my website there in that section. There's a website, you have to spell it out a little bit weird. It's like THREED scans. It's a real classic. Yes, I believe it's Aphrodite. I don't know what's going on with the shadows. Maybe the lights are just too big. Trying to get more stuff on the ground. This light behind everything or whatever is like blowing out the shadow, I think. Ah, this is pretty cool. This is the Windows brand. But yeah, having the dispersion or stuff applied to the cloth, super cool. Super big in the Insta Octane Cinema 4D community. I don't know if this they do for Microsoft 365. There was the Tendril, Studio Tendril spot. So I think this other light, yeah, that had some really cool moments in it. Light number 1. I think I had it too big or something before. I like a little bit of stuff happening in the back, so it doesn't look like comped chucked in at the end. Hootie. Hootie. Houdini is really good for simulations, I think, and then it's getting more and more powerful in terms of like 3D modeling and like what they call procedural. Like I'm doing these noises and everything like that are just kind of made with like generators and stuff like that. You'll see like interesting people will make entire cities or buildings, assets for games like rocks and stuff like that in Houdini. So like it's called like procedural or whatever, but basically there's like an algorithm or there's a techniques or whatever, like procedural techniques behind it that are whether it's like logic operators, such a difficult soft to render. I think in general it's just a difficult software, right? It's like pretty I don't know, it's a steep learning curve, I would say. I don't think it's difficult. It's different once you learn it. Yeah, I mean it's definitely a different workflow than a lot of the other 3D software packages. Like this is the only one that's laid out with the nodes and everything like that. Never could get it done with a simple. I don't know. I think this for simple. Like I definitely know for complex modeling it becomes difficult. Like you're trying to model an apartment and build it out inside of Houdini, that will slow you down and be pretty difficult. Like sometimes for complex like modeling operations and stuff, Maya or Blender are better software packages for it. But in terms of just making like abstract textures and materials and shapes, I think Houdini is pretty good. I'm gonna maybe try adjusting these lights some more. It's feeling a little too scary earlier. This, I don't know, just makes it look a little bit too toxic or something. Could just try adjusting maybe either dispersion or IOR. I don't know, it could just be part of the glass. Go back to the poly extrude distance. Maybe try just a little more subtle. Could try something where it's the glass isn't taking over the full composition. Would be cool. about the Instagram post you shared earlier. Was he just lerping between different objects to cause the shifting ceramics effect and then exporting it to Alembic? I have a feeling he was doing a bit more complicated stuff. So I think if you just do a lerp, like, it will look very much like you're just crossfading between two things. He might have like been lerping basically all those vases. You generally start with like a profile curve. He could have been like lerping different portions of that curve and starting from there, but the way that he was transitioning materials, that as well looked like a bit more complex. Like maybe the different layers making up his shaders were transitioned at different times. So instead of just, this is my material A, this is my material B switch, like he was fading in and out the bump map or the displacement, fading in and out the color, and then the material like at different times. I've tried some stuff like that before, and it definitely, if you just do a simple lerp, it looks pretty just a little more amateur. Like he definitely spent a lot of time integrating all that stuff. I'm just gonna try adjusting the offset. I don't know, the top part of that's looking a bit too weird. A bit better. Nice to see someone uses Houdini in Twitch. Nice to meet you. Yeah, it's I haven't seen a ton of people doing it, but I think even just anyone doing 3D stuff on Twitch is pretty interesting. You doing some 3D stuff? Goldie Ames? Might just be too rough now. It's a bit too murky in some areas. Use ZBrush, 3ds Max, and Houdini. Yeah, I used to use 3ds Max quite a while ago. But I don't know, it's kind of interesting. It is as well pretty good for like simulations. You have to use a bit more plugins and stuff, but even their old like eFlow stuff with the particle systems was a pretty cool like node-based logic operators or whatever. Oh no. A tear. That's just decreasing the roughness, like the blurriness of the reflection on the bust. Still thinking this, like the shadows and stuff in the environment are feel a bit bad right now. just try to refine the lighting. It's almost like a Picasso or something now. It's super distorted. I don't know, like an impressionist painting is more of this. Do you work as an artist freelance? Yeah, I've gone between some permanent, like almost staff-based things, but I've always been working as a, I don't know, anywhere from like 2 weeks to 6 months contract or whatever for advertising, films, all that stuff. This is pretty nice. Super, it is pretty, it's almost like the Matisse kind of broad forms or something. Maybe putting the privacy in privacy glass. You try maybe shrinking the pane a little bit more. I think it's cool. It makes things feel a bit more refined to do that. All right, I think it's close. You guys ever use the privacy stuff on your laptop? The the film that goes over the screen, you have to be like directly in front of it if you're editing important documents. Maybe just a hint of use. I don't know. I think it's better without it. The Windows debloater. Yeah, I used to see it's more of an old school thing, but like on trains and stuff, or sometimes at a cafe, you see people with the I don't know if they're like changing bank accounts or stocks or something. They'll have the, sometimes at the library you see it as well. You want to try the depth of field. I think you can get some interesting depth of field stuff going through the glass because it changes like the distance. I don't know. Seems like it's killing too much of the details. Could be cool. Like a really angry person. Compers have them sometimes. You think it gives you a better? It's like to block out the light, or is it because of NDA? Sometimes I see the compers with the color correction hoods that go like over the colorist. Aggrodite. Yeah, it's always weird. Sometimes they put the compers in like the room with all the sunlight, and it's I was always jealous because they would like curtain out or black out the. Some places I worked in New York had really good like downtown views. The compers had like the best views, and then they would just put curtains and blankets over all the windows. Let's go back to this light. I think it's too much on her lower shoulder or torso. Came in here looking like George Washington. Right? It's that George Washington, that dollar bill haircut. Some places I've worked at, effects artists go crazy with the blackout shades as well, but I think it depends what you're working on. Some stuff, like, is you need to be more color sensitive and everything. I might just brighten, switching the lights around a little bit more to try to have this be more of the focal point. What draws your eyes in more. This is super Picasso'd out now. These off kilter like bits. Thank you, Julian. Yeah, it turned it out pretty abstract, graphical or whatever. I think this background is a bit better with the, I don't know, being white, like a little bit brighter at least. Might pull a little bit more back on the depth of field. It's just making things too soft. Yeah, I'm happy. I think it's tough to transfer the knowledge, but I feel like this is a good way to at least break down a good amount of like the thought process or that kind of phase of things that doesn't really get shared too much. Player 2, thank you for chilling. Thanks for working so much. I know it's part of your school for that Kuntash, but your progress for it was looking really cool. Really liking the curves of that vehicle. Might be close to it for me as well. You get to show it off. So yeah, what I might do is take this statue, go a lot higher on the poly reduce, so it keeps more of the detail. So this is just kind of moving to final quality right now. Looking goof. And then the glass, just turn this tessellation back on. This, like, certain parts of it, we were getting the grid artifacts or whatever, so like doing the render time subdivision helps really smooth out the distortions. Just gonna jack up qualities and what is this? Kind of like a 2K 1920. Just do a bucket render. Yeah, it could be cool to add like some textures to the glass, like scuffs, like smudges, like you touch your phone screen or something. These pinches and stuff turned out pretty cool. This dispersion always adds like a little bit of, you really need to start adding more samples to get rid of some of the noise it produces, but some cool stuff with it. Right? It's a bit of the Matisse vibes to it. Accidental Matisse. Yeah, the caustics could be pretty cool, especially like on the background, getting like reflective, a hint of stuff. Doing a turntable, then with your vellum reveal. Oh, doing a drape pull off. Whoa. Yeah, that could be pretty cool. Yeah, I think the I don't know, there's some really cool references you can find for that cloth stuff. Even like add a hint of mystery to it. If like you see the fray or the fringes of it ripple, like in a wind or a breeze, and then the reveal could add a lot of get a lot of production quality for your time. But yeah, the model's looking amazing. Yeah, I really like the bold curves and stuff. Super sharp edges and everything. The current model I'm using is super scuffed. It's just not that interesting of a model or edition of it or whatever. You were using this Houdini for modeling this player too? Or it's a Maya? White with red leather? Yeah, that's very luxurious. The red leather. Some of these colors are a bit, kind of feel a bit fake. First saw it on Hypebeast article, photographed in the snow. It was so bold. Yeah, I think the snow just white would like really make the red pop, seem super vibrant. It's pretty cool composition and idea overall. Yeah, they're probably gonna leave it here for today. I think it turned out pretty cool. I really love this subtle ripples and dispersion and stuff like that. Got a interesting abstract stuff going on. Sorry again about missing Wednesday. We'll be back tomorrow, maybe at a full resolution. Saturday in HD. Yeah, I think there's still some other files I need to upload as well. Been a bit behind on that in the Discord. But yeah, thanks again everyone for hanging out. Probably send everyone over to Blake Catherine's stream again. She was doing some cool stuff last week around this time. She does really nice Photoshop work and all that. Have a good rest of your Friday evening, afternoon, whatever it is.